Hello everyone, Auvbri here and welcome back to another speed build in The Sims 4. Today we are doing what I would probably say is my most ambitious and detailed build that I have ever done in The Sims 4. So we are building the Temples of Aphrodite. Now you might be thinking, where the hell do I get this idea? Well, I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and especially the new Atlantis DLC as well. And I've just been so inspired how they created the Greek architecture in that game that I thought, you know what, I might take a whack at it myself. So I've gone around, and this is not even, I'm not even kidding when I'm saying this, I've been going around having my PlayStation on one screen, playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and having my Sims game open in another screen to, you know, mix and match. So I would go to different places in Assassin's Creed. So it's a mixture of some Assassin's Creed buildings and locations from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but it's also a lot of my own imagination because there's just a lot of things that you can't do that is, for example, in a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey that you can't do in Sims 4. So I had to get creative. Now, why did I call this the Temples of Aphrodite? Now, the reason that I called that is because we have this wonderful statue in The Sims 4 that I believe I'm gonna whip out in just a minute. But we have this wonderful statue, and I always, every single time I use it, I don't know why, but I'm thinking of Aphrodite, and I just thought, you know what, that would be freaking perfect. So as you can see already from the timestamp on this video, it's almost 40 minutes long. Now this build took a little over 2 days to do because it has been a very busy month for me, and when I had some spare time I would build on it. So I had about 2 days worth of footage that I had to cut down, edit and strip down into a 30-minute long video. But I also know that you guys want to see as many things as possible, so I tried to compensate for that again by just adding a bit more. So it's a little under 40 minutes, but it should be good. You can skip in it, you can stop the video and go back to it when you're ready to watch some more. It's really up to you guys, but I wanted to show you guys what I do because a lot of people are very interested in how I do different things. So here we have the statue that is gonna be Aphrodite in this build. Now I wanted to have a big statue, but because she kept going away through the floor when I actually scaled her up, we made this little room underneath so she could we could move her up in the air, and it still looked like she was standing on the ground. Now she's gonna be the center point of this build, so she's right in the middle. You might have seen in the beginning of the build that I was actually counting where the middle of this would be, because something that I've noticed when playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey as well as other Assassin's Creed games, but definitely the Greek architecture in ancient Greek seemed to be a lot of geometric stuff. So they were really into making everything geometric, so one side would fit the other side as well, and they would be equally long, wide and stuff like that. So I really wanted to take that concept and really run with it. So it's really geometrical looking and stuff in the middle here. We have this raised down lower floor where I just thought, you know, this is just such a cool hangout place. It gives this wow factor that we have this raised down. There's lots of staircases. We have, you know, these braziers and flowers, and we're gonna add a lot of details. So one of the things that Aphrodite is known for is having a human lover, if you didn't know. And the human lover is Adonis. And I thought, you know what, the man sitting down and looking like he's thinking or whatever, the thinker I think they call him, could be Adonis. So let's make him into that character. So that's what we did. And he is also not heavily, but he's featured somewhat throughout the the temples here. He has his own little temple as well, but again, this is for Aphrodite the most, so we're of course gonna focus on her. Now, we skipped a little in the video here because I did some very tedious work. I had to make the basement level work also, which it didn't. It was just a lot of tedious work trying to figure out how to do stuff. Also, because in The Sims 4, for some unknown reason that I still don't understand, we are not able to have pillars that are more than one height. So that means that I had to stack all of these pillars that you see throughout the whole build. All of them are stacked on top of each other. We could have made another floor and put the pillar on top of that, but then you kind of have this gap between the pillars where the floor tile was supposed to be, which just looks stupid because then the pillar is basically floating in the air, which is definitely not what we're going for. So I stacked the pillars on top of each other, and then we chose this very heavy trim to put around, so you couldn't actually see that they were stacked, and there is that gap between the flooring on top of it and the pillar. Also, that's something I also took a lot of inspiration from the game and improved. Oh yeah, so when I was building this build, most of the time I was talking to other peeps on Discord, and Fry sent me this inspiration video from another amazing builder who had done Mount Olympus and some other Greek inspired build as well. So I also took some inspiration from her and some tips and tricks on how we could do stuff. But again, Odyssey is definitely the game that is inspired the most in this build. And we're going to make a lot of changes throughout the build. So we have these huge columns here from the walkways on either side. They're going to change. I wanted to bring my own flair to the game as well, so it just wasn't, you know, correct Greek inspired. So we're going to put in these pillars now. In Assassin's Creed, if you've never played it, it's a really cool series, but there's people called the Isu from the first civilization, and they have these very distinct architecture, which I thought these kind of arches really reminded me of. So I thought I would put them in, and of course decorate them with, you know, some hanging plants and flowers and stuff, and really make them fit in. And I do believe deep down in my heart, in the end, that they really do fit well with the whole concept. It's not like they're out of place in my head. So I'm really happy about how everything turned out, and we're just going around decorating. So a lot of this build is just scaling things up, putting in a lot of details, and halfway through this build I was actually telling Frankie Valerie that my game was lacking like crazy, because we had so many items at this point. Like halfway through the build, items galore. There was like so many items and stuff, and like I've said this many times, but I have a very good gaming computer, so it shouldn't be a problem. So it's definitely something with the game engine itself that it's not able to handle that many items. Games like Planet Coaster does it as well. When you come to a certain point with, you know, objects, it starts to lag because it's, you know, there's just too much going on. So so much for performance, but no, that was mean. But yeah, we're just going around creating different flower beds. That's also something I noticed a lot in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because they have recreated whole ancient Greece, and they've really done their homework. They've researched different types of stuff, and one thing I noticed is there was a lot of flower beds, or just beds with different beautiful plants in them, and I also wanted to recreate that. So we have a lot of those. I tried to make different layers of it, so we had different heights of plants and flower beds, just, you know, to create the illusion that everything isn't flat. And I think it turned out really nice. So we're creating one of those now. In the back of the build, I'm gonna say back, but in the back where we have the big statue of Aphrodite, there is also some more of these flower beds. We're gonna do something a bit different with that later, because I thought it looked, you know, a lot better than what I was initially planning. So you might have seen it in the introduction as well. We have tons of different temples in this build as well. So I didn't actually plan for the build to be this big when I started out with it. I just wanted to have, you know, the big Aphrodite statue in the back, the down into the basement whole thing, and then maybe a temple on one side and you know, a fountain pool area on the other. But as I kept building, this build just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I just couldn't stop. I couldn't help myself. It was like, you know, when you get caught by a building bug and you're just like, yes, this is so fucking good. Oh my god, sorry for swearing, but I'm just so happy about how this build turned out, and I really do hope that you guys like it, because I've spent so long on it, and I hope that all the detailing as well also shines through in the build, and you guys can actually see how much detail I tried to put in here. So we have tons of objects. Now this object that we're using now, we're gonna use that as fencing throughout the whole build, because this is probably the most Greek thing in the game, besides some of the columns and the statues, and it just fits, you know, it fits like a damn glove. Because I was initially going to use one of the fences around the place. It would have been much easier, but because this is a single object, that's also some of the objects, or one of the objects that's attributed to my game starting to lag, and all the flowers as well. But it just looked good. I was like, I cannot leave it out. I mean, it's just, it fits really well. And I couldn't actually remember what the object was called, so I was talking to Fry, and she was like, yeah, it's from Get Together. And I was like, no, it's not. And she was like, yeah, it is. And oh, you're right, it is. And she was like, well, just listen to me. Why don't you ever listen? Oh god, I'm so unprofessional. I'm sorry. But yeah, we put in tons of those as well. And here I'm just starting to figure out that, hey, maybe this build is gonna be 10 times bigger than I planned. So we need some more space. I was trying to figure out what kind of columns I wanted to use. So I didn't want to use the same columns throughout the whole build, because the Greeks didn't do that either, and they have a lot of these different types of columns. Now there is a very fine line between Greek architecture and Roman architecture, so I was trying to not go too far over into Roman, but again, it is a very thin line. So if there's any Greeks out there who's watching this and you're thinking this is just horrible and it's not Greek at all, honestly, I'm really sorry, but seeing that I am a European myself, and this is how I would perceive a Greek building to look like and not a Roman one, I really did my best, and I really hope you guys like that and can see that, the amount of time that I spent on it. I was trying to find a roof that would look just right, and the one from Jungle Adventures just like hit the nail on a freaking coffin. It was so perfect, so I had to use that. More columns around the place, so that's something I saw a lot in Greek builds, both in the research that I did on Google and in Assassin's Creed Odyssey as well, that they had these huge buildings, but really they weren't that huge inside. They were actually fairly small, you know, quote unquote small, because a lot of the build was all of these columns around the build to hold up the big roof and all of the big architecture that was on the roof. So I did this on every single one of the roofs except one. Made these kind of small, I'm not even sure what to call them, like architectural details with different pots and you know, statues and stuff in front of each roofing piece, because that is something that the Greeks do, and it's in almost every ancient Greek build where they do this. So I was like, yes, well, let's do that. Here I was trying to cut some time and see if I could just copy paste the whole build on the other side, because the basic structure was going to be the same, but I wanted this build on the other side of the map to be a different type of build, and I could copy almost everything. So that really did save me a lot of time, because scaling those columns, like dragging them up and down, just takes forever, and it's probably some of the things that took longest in this build. It's moving things up and down and getting in the details into the build, because the details in a build like this really does make the difference, and is really where you can see like, oh, okay, so he did that, and you know, stuff like that. So I really thought that was really cool. Some more detailings on the roofing side of the build here, some Adonis statuettes, and just trying to make everything look really nice and beautiful. So we have two big temples in this build. One of them is a tribute temple, which is the first one we built. We're gonna get back to that later, because I knew what that temple was gonna be, but this temple over here, I didn't actually know what I wanted to do with that temple. So I was trying to do some different stuff here. I knew I wanted to have these big display open window things, screens, let's call them screens, on each side of the huge walls, because I wanted to bring in a lot of natural lights as first, but I also wanted it to stand out from the other temple that we were gonna do over on the other side of the map. I'm gonna say map because this is the biggest slot and it's just such a huge build, so otherwise it's really confusing for me and for you guys as well. But I wanted to do something totally different over here than what we're gonna do on the other temple on the other side. So we ended up doing these big screens, again to bring in natural light to differentiate from the other build as well, the other temple. And then I was like, okay, so what can I do in here? I was looking for some decorations, and what I found that the Ubisoft team who made Odyssey had done. Damn, that's bad English. What I found that the Ubisoft Odyssey team had done with their builds was to bring in a lot of decorations for the outside of temples as well. You know, temples where they worship gods like Athena or Persephone or Aphrodite, whoever they might be. There was a lot of different types of decorations for the outside of those types of builds, depending on what god it was. And I was like, okay, so Aphrodite is the goddess of love, so we can definitely put in tons of flowers here, which is also why we're working with a lot of purple in this build, and we're gonna put in a lot of that in just a bit. And of course I had to put in a bougainvillea for Simproof because that's her favorite flower. There is a sex bush hidden on this lot. I really do believe that I put in a sex bush. It should be here someplace, but if it's not, I'm like the worst person in the world. I'm so sorry, Fry, if you're watching this, for forgetting the sex bush. It's an abomination on my part. I'm really sorry. But getting back into the temple, I wanted to have a lot of flowers because it's Aphrodite. She's the goddess of love and passion, and I really thought that bringing in all of these natural, beautiful things would help that. So that's what we started to do with all the flowers. And then I was putting up these wall decorating, I'm not even sure what it is. It's like fabric that hangs and it looks really beautiful, and I kind of imagine it would flow really well in the wind as well. But I started putting these up, and then I was like, okay, so white is just, it looks good, but something's missing here. So I changed some of them to purple, and at this point we've done something so that you guys couldn't see either. We've put them up over on some of the other parts of the build as well, just to, you know, make everything look really nice. And yeah, I remember this temple really well because I spent a lot of time on it, and well, I spent a lot of time on the whole build, but this temple in particular, I spent a lot of time on it because I didn't know what to do with it. So there's some cuts here and there that you're not gonna see, just because, like here, I deleted everything that I'd done inside the temple at this point, and I was trying to do something new again for the third time, and I was like, what the heck am I gonna do with this build? So then I was like, okay, can we maybe put in a fountain? Because at first I made this into a warship temple as well. Not that's dissimilar from the Aphrodite temple that's gonna be on the other side of the map, but you know, just too similar that I thought, no, this is not working for me. Then I put in, you know, a place where people could just hang out, and that just didn't fit with the whole vibe of the build. So I deleted it again, and then this is the third attempt, and I thought, okay, so let's put in some fountains. We can put in some more Aphrodite statues. We can really decorate it up with, you know, detailing all around the place, and really try to make it look beautiful and different, and put in some candles, some places where people can put jugs of food and jars of different stuff, and make it into that kind of worship where people can, like, I don't want to say make love, but let's face it, it's the Temples of Aphrodite, so people are probably gonna do it around here. But I wanted to have that kind of worship temple over here instead, so that's kind of what we did. And of course I needed to have some of the Aphrodite statues in here as well, because that makes sense in my head. I really wish that these statues, that we could have the same statue, but we could like mirror it so it would face in the other direction, like, if that makes sense. So it would be like mirrored but opposite. That would have been really helpful in this build, especially when doing things like we're doing inside the temple here, where we have the same statue in each corner. I tried to angle all of them so they kind of faced in and looked into the middle of the temple, but it was really difficult, but I think it looks really nice in the end. So we have all of the worship things, we have all of the candles, and then I started putting in some different rocks and some bougainvillea, and we're gonna put in some of those weird pillar seating things that came with the toddler pack, I believe, because they fit in so well as well. It's kind of like really beautiful. I honestly really like that item. It's really good, especially for a build with like this, where it needs to be more Mediterranean, Greek inspired, because I don't know, I feel like it is really Greek inspired. In the back here, I didn't know what to do, but I did know that I wanted to use this round thing. So it's two halves pushed into one round object, which I thought was really cool. And then I put a fountain in the middle of it, and it's just a nice little thing in the back, just to, you know, not to so much fill up the space, but to always have something in the build that your eye can look at. That was really important for me. And the entrance to the build here, we have some more of Adonis statues on either side, because we could see the big Aphrodite statue. We can see the big Aphrodite statue in the back, and I thought, okay, so let's put in some Adonis statues in the front here, and kind of like make them look beautiful as well. So we have this, I don't want to say weird, but I tried to make this build somewhat ancient looking, but not completely fallen. So we have plants all around, but there's like stuff like this with the railing, fencing that we have all around the place. That kind of looks a bit broken. We have the fake steps that are created out of stone going up to the upper floor of the temples, which also looks kind of broken, but I don't know, it really fits in, you know? It's not like it's out of place. So and even in ancient Greece in the game, things are starting to crumble a bit, which I thought was just really cool. So I wanted to recreate that as well. Here we are at the temple worshipping Aphrodite. Now this is a temple where it's just one statue of Aphrodite inside the temple and tons of food and stuff in there for people to worship her. That was actually something that was inside the game as well. Every single, yeah, that's the sex bush. I knew I put one in. But every single time that you got to a new temple in Odyssey, for example, there is the Temple of Athena, there is the Temple of Aphrodite, they would have their own huge statue inside of those temples, and I tried to recreate that as well. There's nothing inside the temple except the statue and some worshipping stuff. So for example, I put in candles, I put in tons of flowers because I thought that would really accent the place well. And then I started putting in food and jugs and you know, stuff like that, just kind of like we did over in the other temple as well. But this is just a bit more, you know, in your face worship, where the other one was not so much. And then again, I was trying to find something to put in the corners there because it looked a bit bare-boned, but we made it work in the end. And then I changed it to brown actually in here, because that's something white and brown was kind of like, it was white outside and it was brown inside the Temple of Aphrodite in the game. So I thought that was really interesting, so I tried to mix that in here as well. And then I tried to find a stone wall that would actually fit with it. So we used this stone washed wall inside the builds. It came from the, what was it, fitness stuff pack, I believe. So use that inside, and with the same flooring as the outside, just a tone darker, so everything of course would match. And yeah, then we just start putting in details, and we're almost at the end here, guys. Just 10 minutes more. I know you can do it, just hang in there. Honestly, it's also really difficult for me to do commentary this long, to keep finding stuff to talk about, but I think we're doing well. So we're almost done with the Temple of Aphrodite here, and then it's just about decorating. The last things we're gonna do in this build is start to build all the smaller temples that you saw in the intro as well. So we have some small temples. There's going to be 3 smaller temples in this build. So we have opposite the one of Aphrodite here, we have the smaller worshipping temple of Adonis. And again, if you don't know Greek history, that's totally fine. The only reason that I know the basic stuff that other people do as well, but the only reason that I really know a lot of stuff about it is because games like Assassin's Creed have history as their playground. That's basically their motto, which is totally fine and really cool. So they take parts of history that is kind of like where something is missing or something is not explained, or you know, stuff like that. And they did that with the Greek as well, but they really use a lot of real references and real stories to emphasize their own story, which I think is really cool. So I know that Aphrodite and Adonis were an item, and I know that Adonis was held captured by Persephone. So I know all of these really weird things, but I wanted to have a small temple for Adonis, which again was the lover of Aphrodite, her human lover, and I wanted to have a small temple for him, like opposite the one with the with Aphrodite, and I think it turned out really nice. It's just a small little tribute center, and then in the middle we had this big open space. I wanted to have initially a water feature, but again, going into the game, looking what they did and how they actually handled empty space, I just took a look around my own builds, saw what I've done everywhere else, and tried to make the same thing but different. So we have this, you know, feature in the middle here with some water around it as well. So all of these water features that we see is actually a pool, because for some reason you are not able to place a fountain on top of a room, which I think is really stupid. But you know, I'm not the one that's making the game, but I'm sure there's a reasoning behind it, but I don't understand why you're not able to do that. So it looks a bit deep, but I tried to compensate that by adding some wallpapers and some flooring that's made it look not so deep. And some seating areas. I'm actually gonna be I'm a bit confused. So I might have cut out all the parts with the other two temples, but I'm of course going to show you them in the outro section, the video tour. But I might have cut them out. It seems like I've cut them out. But basically there's two more temples on the other side here where we're at now. One of them is a temple with lots of plants that is raised up to a new level. Yeah, okay, maybe I'm gonna show it. God, okay, so I edited this to a speed version a long time ago. So last 3-4 days ago or something, and then I had to work a lot, so I had to skip that and kind of focus on work, and then I had to come back to it and shoot the video tour, and then so this is yeah, this is interesting to watch. But it's all good. So you're gonna see the one of the temples here as well. Not so much a temple, I wouldn't call it. Honestly, more like a small house, like a small decorative house as well. And again, just some more of these, you know, really cool looking, yeah, small fountain pieces and stuff just around the place to, you know, fill space up so it doesn't look like there's a lot of empty, unused space. We're gonna put one on the other side of this build as well. Over here, yeah, there we go. I knew I was gonna put one in there. And then on top of that, we're gonna have a smaller temple as well, which is done, which is like the temple with a lot of plants, just a like nice little temple. And we're basically done here. I'm just gonna put in some plants in the back just to hide the fact that this is raised up and make it look nice. And we're gonna jump into the video tour. So this is, yeah, I remember this. This is the very last thing I did because I saw that we had some empty space here, and I was like, yeah, that just does not stand well with me. So let's fix that. So another water feature place with Aphrodite and Adonis, and that's that. So here we have it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this build and that you like it. Remember, if you want to get the build, it is on the gallery right now. Just search my origin ID, which is Auvbri, and you should be able to find every single build that I've done. And I'm gonna leave you guys to the video tour. I really hope you enjoyed this build and that you appreciate it. And have a truly fantastic day wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you next time for another video. So enjoy the rest. Bye.